stadium somewhere in the world and their experiences there. I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.
And we are excited to be here with you tonight. So before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the Stadium Journey YouTube channel, like the video, leave a comment, follow us on our other social media channels as well. We can be found at Stadium Journey. And the official Stadium Journey review of today's venue can be found at stadiumjourney.com, or the link is in the comments below. So let's get rolling. Dave, what are you drinking today?
So baseball being what it is and baseball season being where we're at, I decided to pull out one of our buddy Mark's favorites because he likes this. Its brewery is right across the road from the Rogers Center. So right from Toronto, I have a Steam Whistle Pilsner.
I feel like I needed one of those train whistles.
Well, you know what? The brewery is actually a former train. What do you call those? Roundhouse.
Yep.
Where the engines go in, turns around. Yeah, used to be there. What do you got?
Cool. So we went on a road trip this past weekend and stopped at one of my favorite places in the country, Appalachian Brewing Company. And thanks to our folks from the Sock Puppets and the Otterbots for teaching me the proper way to say Appalachian. So actually, the brewmaster at ABC, which is based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, is a good friend of mine. I've known him for decades. And so I picked up a couple 12 packs of mountain lager beer. So when I opened it and poured it into my glass, I was like, ooh, yeah, there's that smell. It's a good lager right there. Very aromatic. Great baseball type beer. So if you were visiting today's destination, we might be drinking a little Big Top from Second Shift Brewery, because today we're talking about Busch Stadium, home of the St. Louis Cardinals. Before we dive into our discussion, let's take a look at the stadium vitals. Okay, so we're visiting Busch Stadium, and Dave, I think it can be argued that out of all the old cookie cutter ballparks and stadiums from the 70s, Busch Stadium would seem to be the one that was the most beloved, the one that seemed to work the best for the baseball team. And then they went and replaced it with Busch Stadium Part 3, and that one kind of has some mixed reviews. Some people really love it, other people are kind of just meh about it. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's twofold actually. I think one is that it's the Cardinals, and St. Louis is as much a baseball town as there is anywhere. They are baseball first, and by far baseball biggest. I mean, you could make the argument that New York is baseball first, but not remotely close to baseball biggest. I mean, the Blues are popular in St. Louis, but not nearly as close to being as popular as the Cardinals are. So with that being said, I think the expectations are really high. Combine that with Busch Stadium 3 being kind of the last of the run. So it's kind of the last of those retro classics that have popped up all over the country. And when you're at that end, it's tough to come up with some original ideas. And it doesn't seem like there were too many original ideas at Busch Stadium. There's, they have the ballpark village, which I know you would say is not an organic ballpark village, but now more than ever, they're not organic. They're built because the team's owning them, right? Busch Stadium is actually owned by the Cardinals, which is unique in and of itself. So yeah, they got their ballpark village. They've got rooftop seats, which is totally coming from Wrigley Field and the Cubs. And would you have ever guessed that the Cardinals would take anything for the Cubs?
Yeah, I show that one over like a lead balloon, huh?
Yeah, no doubt. It's the brown brick. It's not green seats, it's red seats, thankfully. But it just seems like in its time, there wasn't too much to be wow about, unless maybe you're a St. Louis Cardinal fan and, that's your home park and you're going there regularly. But for us travelers, who have been to Pittsburgh and who have been to Colorado and who have been to Philadelphia and all of these places and have kind of seen it all, St. Louis is not, it doesn't bring too much to the table that's original.
Wow. Yeah, you just articulated that perfectly for me. I really can't put my finger on why Busch Stadium didn't really wow me. I liked it just fine, but you're right. It's not. There's not a whole lot there, at least in my mind, to distinguish it from Detroit, from Cleveland, from Philly, from Colorado. Yeah. Ballpark Village again. Every stadium has their own version of Ballpark Village. Yeah, when the first one I think was actually, believe it or not, Gillette Stadium. And everybody laughed at Bob Kraft when he built it, but now it's become standard issue for every new stadium. Look at Atlanta. You could probably come up with a whole lot more.
Well, even Wrigley, Wrigley, which had this organic Ballpark Village, what did they do? They bought a whole chunk of land and they created their own Ballpark Village.
Yeah. And when I went to Stadium, I will admit, Ballpark Village was not finished yet. It was just in its infancy. So yeah, to me, I mean, Ballpark Village to me, from what I've seen, it's a bar, and the Cardinals Hall of Fame. Okay, the Hall of Fame, I'm sure, is wonderfully done. But yeah, there's a bar across the street from the ballpark. Oh my God, stop the presses. Yeah.
Well, essentially the Ballpark Village, as far as I know, is a couple of things. The Hall of Fame Museum, first and foremost, and the Hall of Fame Museum, the tour is excellent.
I'm sure it is.
I want to be careful that we're not kind of slagging on the experience, because the experience is great. They did everything right, except they needed something original, and I don't know what that was.
Right.
So the Hall of Fame Museum, excellent. When we went, we actually ate at Cardinal Nation, which is the team themed restaurant that's right there, the bar that's there. They have the other bar, the Budweiser Brew House. That's the one that has the rooftop seating on it. And then I think there's a couple others. There's like a country western bar kind of thing. So it's not to the extent that Atlanta is now, or even like what Gillette is now, which is really massive, right? And there's a number of different things going on. But I think, key for that Ballpark Village to me is the Hall of Fame, and the Cardinals have just a wonderful history.
Absolutely.
Hall of Famers, Ozzie Smith and Stan Musial and Bob Gibson and Whitey Herzog and Lou Brock and who's who. And I guess one thing I kind of like about St. Louis is it's not New York and it's not Los Angeles. There is that sort of arrogance about it. Like, well, we're the Cardinals. Of course, we have championships. We have 11 World Series. And I was going
to mention that their fans do come off a bit pompous.
But it's not it's not the same as when you get a New York where there is pomposity just about being in New York, right? Like that's right. Well, of course, this is New York. Like,
yeah. Yeah, St. Louis has a lot going for it at Busch Stadium. That view, that outfield view that opens up to the arch, and if you're on the upper deck, you got fantastic panoramic views of the arch, and I think you can see City Hall and stuff. There's some skyscrapers, he tried to say. The light rail, if you're coming from different parts of the city, brings you right up next door to the ballpark. We actually, that's how we got there. So easy to get in and out. They honor their history in addition to the Hall of Fame you're talking about. They've got statues of Stan Musial and I forget who else is over there. I know Jack Buck has
Lou Brock has one.
Yeah, Ozzie Smith has one. So yeah, you can circle the stadium and see some Cardinal history that way too. So there is a lot of really nice things done at Busch Stadium. So yeah, I don't want to intimate at all that I dislike the place. It's definitely not at the bottom of my rankings. It's just not as great to me as maybe as a Red Sox fan, maybe because I went there and saw the Red Sox lose a couple of games. But yeah, it's good, not great in my mind.
And St. Louis downtown is interesting. It's not like I mean, it's kind of like Cleveland, but not like Cleveland. Like there are no other venues that are just right there, right? You got to go a few blocks to go to the Dome, where the Rams used to play. You got to go a few blocks in another direction to go to the Enterprise Center where the Blues play. It's another couple blocks to go to where the new soccer stadium is being built. So it's not totally congregated in this one smaller sort of destination. And I think that's probably a good thing. St. Louis as a city sometimes gets a bad rap as being a rough spot to go and not necessarily a spot that you want to be at certain times. But I think the downtown is pretty decent. I think the other thing that I have trouble with, and it goes part and parcel with the Cardinals and being, 11 World Series and being really popular, and that's the price. It's not a cheap spot to go. It's an expensive spot to go. But if you're a ball fan, then definitely you want to go. You want to do the full gambit. Take another day and go do that ballpark tour, and go spend a lot of time in the museum. Don't just rush through it like, oh well, I got a half hour before the first pitch. I'm gonna run through the museum. That you're not doing it justice into a city like St. Louis, where it's baseball, and if you're a baseball guy, that's the spot to be.
Yeah, and there's other things to do to bring if you're in St. Louis. Of course, everyone who visits St. Louis for the first time has to go see the Arch. Going to the top of the Arch may be a different story for you if you're large like I am, or if you're claustrophobic. And not the most enjoyable trip up to the top, let me tell you. But I'm glad I did it. But it was one of those things. I got up there and I'm like, okay, this is too packed in. There's 1,000 people up here. I'm not happy. Let's go back down. The river tours are fantastic. Some great barbecue in St. Louis. If you're visiting St. Louis, go to Pappy Smokehouse. Oh, fantastic. Some of the best barbecue I've had anywhere. So like you said, none of those things are right next to each other. So you're going to be doing a little bit of hopping around the city, which is always something that I personally like to do on a trip. But there's no, all right, go here, and this is where you're going to spend the day, and you're going to do all these things. You're gonna see a bit of the city if you're a tourist.
Yeah, the first time we went, actually, my wife was working down there. This was when we were just kids, and we buzzed all over the place on the metro, and we went to the zoo in St. Louis. They have a wonderful zoo if you're into that. We did go to the Arch, did go up the Arch. Yeah, probably one of the and if you think about it, it makes total sense. Probably one of the oddest elevator rides ever. You go up and you go over and up and over and up and over and up and over. And I think the elevator holds 3
or 4. Yeah. And you're sitting in these little seats in this little egg-shaped thing because it has to go up, like you said, it has to go up the Arch.
Yeah. But definitely worth it. I mean, and the symbolism of, like the gateway to the west, of course, the Mississippi River right there, which is something you don't notice from the ballpark per se, maybe because you kind of stop looking at the Arch. And I would say that I didn't know that if I looked beyond the Arch, I was actually looking at Illinois. I didn't really know that until I looked at the map today. But and like I said, I did come out kind of, it doesn't have that original piece. And maybe if they would have replaced, Busch 2 along the lines of when, they did, PNC or something like that. Maybe it would be different. Or, like the exterior a lot reminds me of Coors Field. Some of the interior feels a little bit like Citizens Bank. And, you got, like we said, the rooftop seating. I know Mark had said that when he went, he was upset with the ticket price, and he was upset that he had an obstructed view seat, one that he couldn't really see the scoreboard. But it's not going to give you that oozing of history feel to it, like like a Fenway or a Wrigley. Like, I know that this happened here and that happened here, and all those guys that played at the beginning of Busch when they won their last World Series, which I think was 2011. I'm not sure. Those guys are all fresh in our memory still. They're not like the Musial and the Lou Brock and those guys.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, part of the maybe a negative about Busch is the location, because they built it right next door to where Busch 2 was. And I think part of Busch 3 is actually the outfield of Busch 2.
The ballpark village is now
right
where Busch 2 was.
Right. But it's not right next to the water like Cincinnati or like Pittsburgh. And it is right next to the highway, but you can't just get off the highway and there you are, like Kauffman Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got good things, but not 100%. So, you give it like solid B's across the board.
Yep. But great way of saying it. It's a solid B. And, maybe it's that, like the first time you saw a laser ribbon in a hockey arena, you went, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. And now, well, of course, everybody's got it, right? So I didn't have that wow factor. It sounds like you didn't have that wow factor. But if I was a home, if St. Louis was my home and I went there 10, 15 times a year, I'd be tickled pink. It would be wonderful.
You would love it. Absolutely. Maybe it's just a victim of the fact that Busch 2 was successful. So it stuck around a little longer than Cincinnati, than Pittsburgh, than Baltimore. And it didn't get to blaze the trails. It kind of followed the trends.
And I think it helped for Busch too that the football Cardinals had left, and they could probably tweak it a little bit so that it was more baseball and not, having to change to be football. And I know, like, when Mark McGuire was doing his big thing, they had a lot of stuff up in the top in the nosebleed seats where, you wouldn't want to sit anyway. And they had all their pennants up there and all that kind of stuff, Big Mac land and all that kind of jazz.
Right.
So they could do that because the football Cardinals had bailed to Arizona already. I think you're absolutely right. It made it stick around a little bit longer, and had Busch 3 kind of at the tail end of all of those. And, it'll be interesting to see what happens, like with Oakland or Portland or wherever it's going to be. Obviously, the new Texas one didn't quite turn out like St. Louis. The new Atlanta one, it is and isn't. It definitely has that ballpark village piece where the Braves own everything, but it doesn't have that retro classic kind of feel, the brown brick and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see where the newer stadiums go.
Absolutely. And let's definitely not forget to mention, when we're talking about the Cardinals, one of the best jerseys, one of the best logos in all of baseball. I just, that timeless shirt, if they would only bring the powder blues back, then I'd be happy.
I'm not big on the Cardinals powder blues. Royals powder blues, okay. Not the Cardinals.
No, I mean, I can't argue with that. So listeners, what do you think of Busch Stadium? Leave your comments on the page here. Join in the conversation. We'd love to hear what you think. So that's Stadium. This is Obstructed Views. We'll see you on the road. Cheers.
Cheers.